Hey, are you ready to grow your business? You have checked out the number one resource for business leaders, entrepreneurs, startup founders, and managers. And we're going to teach you how to grow and scale your business with real actionable steps. There's no fluff in this podcast. It's just good advice. Check out this episode. If you're a first-time listener, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And if you enjoy this episode, leave us a 5-star review. Today's episode is with Sharday Jones, who's the owner of S. Jones Books and Education. She does grant writing, she does curriculum writing, and you may be thinking, well, I don't know if that pertains to me, but probably the most insightful thing that you're going to want to hang on to in this episode is that she's been in business for almost a decade, and she is a master of understanding how to do small business well and how to get customers who really love what you offer. Stay tuned. You're going to love this episode. Here comes your good advice. Hey, thanks for checking out another episode of the Good Advice Podcast. Sitting down with Sharday Jones. She's an educational consultant. She specializes in curriculum design and grant writing. She's also the founder of Sharday Jones Books and Education. She's been in business for, almost a decade, working out of the DC, Baltimore metro area. Sharday, so happy to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be featured on the podcast.
Of course. Well, I mean, I am a former teacher of about a decade ago. And so as soon as I saw that you had some education in your background, I thought we have to get this person on.
Wow, I'm flattered.
Of course. Now, talk to me a little bit more about what do you do for a living? What does your business do?
Okay, so S. Jones Books and Education is an educational consulting company. We work with nonprofits and small businesses to develop their program structure, their curriculum, and then also to acquire financial resources, so grant writing and fundraising. It's kind of a niche market and a niche service, and I got into it, like you said, about 10 years ago, kind of by happenstance. Didn't expect to create this lane, but it became a thing.
Yeah. So what, talk to me a little bit more about that. Like what were you doing and how did you kind of get into this?
So I started off when I graduated from Florida A&M University. I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology. But the last year of undergrad, I was really interested in how to merge psychology with education. And after graduating, I moved to Georgia, and I just started going around meeting people. And every time I would meet someone, I would tell them, my background is in psychology, but I'm interested in getting into education. And I met a woman who later became my mentor, and she had just gotten a grant for an adult education program. And she needed someone to create a curriculum and then also to teach it. So, of course, me trying to get my foot in the door, I was like, absolutely, I'll do that. And so she had, because it was like a startup situation for her, and then also a first time thing for me, we were doing all of the groundwork together. And the grant was very specific. It was, we had to create an adult educational program for a low income housing project community. And so the objectives were to, some of the issues that they were having was transportation, childcare, and those things. So we had to address all of those concerns. And that looked like us going door to door, offering incentives for them completing the program, and then, providing the childcare and the additional resources. And in doing that with her, I also was able to see how she would develop educational programs and go shop them throughout the state of Georgia. And I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that, any developer could create a program and go sell it to a school. So that really interested me. When I moved to Baltimore about a year later, because I really wanted my ultimate goal was to get to the DC area. When I got up here, I did the same thing. I hit the ground and just let people know what I did. And that had transitioned from I want to be an instructor to I want to develop educational programs. And how do I do that? And so I would talk to different nonprofit leads, or not even if they weren't fully established, if there were small businesses who, maybe they were in IT or maybe they were sports educators. I would just talk to them about their long-term goals. And as they decided that they wanted to get into enrichment programming, not having a background in curriculum or education, I was able to provide that service. And so my company just grew from providing those supplemental services, and word of mouth spread, and that became my lane.
Yeah. Now, as obviously you have over and beyond beat the statistic, because you're right on the edge of 10 years. And it's something like, 80% of businesses aren't even going to make it past, 3 or 4 years. And so what's the journey been like for you?
It's not been easy. And
that can't be right. Everyone online tells me how easy it is.
Right. I think, anybody who wants to get into entrepreneurship or solopreneurship should definitely understand that it's a long haul journey. And one of the things that has helped me is understanding that you have to have, for me, I've always had to have side hustles just to get me through those downswings, because a lot of times in business, you'll have these upswings where your business is booming and you're making a lot of money, but then you might have a downswing period for a month or a couple months where you're not able to get clients as frequently as you anticipated. Mm-hmm. So for me, what has helped is creating automated systems, just like, paying myself a salary whenever I have an abundance of income or an abundance of clients, just making sure that I'm putting that money aside, and also, setting up my own insurances, the business insurances, disability insurances, and also like setting up my retirement systems and stuff like that. So setting up systems early on is extremely important. And what has really helped me is looking at the long-term game. The majority of my clients have come from word of mouth. And that's from the beginning of my my career in this market. I'm just getting to the point where I'm marketing my services and, looking to scale up, just because, I want to make sure that my business can run without me if necessary. But for me, it's been, I want to genuinely serve you. I'm not worried about the number. I'm worried about how I can serve your organization, how I can help you, how I can support you, and just putting that energy in it and understanding and having faith that the numbers, will work themselves out, at least in the beginning before scaling up. But the numbers will work themselves out has allowed me to, I guess, my reputation to precede itself. So.
Well, and I have two separate thoughts. The first one is I so admire your perspective, because a lot of leaders can't scale up because they can't remove themselves. It's a stroking of the ego, right? I like to be at the center of this thing, and I love what you said, because it's so right, and it's such a key insight for any business wanting to grow. Is if you're going to scale, you can't. Just even physically, you can't clone yourself, right? And so you can't, right. It has to be able to exist and function without you making every call and being right there at the center of it.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
The second thing you said that I really appreciated too, and now that I just had my rant on the first one, I can't even remember what the second one was. It was something you said that was just great. Oh, I remember what it was. It's interesting how I talked to people who, because you made this insight that was really great, and you called it word of mouth. And there's really nothing more powerful than the power of someone's verbal recommendation of you. But I've noticed a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners who they're even trying to get to the point of scaling up before they even have customers, but they're trying to grow their business, but they don't want to build relationships. They don't want to, really build those deep connections where people can refer you. Instead, they're thinking, how do I post on Facebook? How do I post on LinkedIn? Like, what's the content strategy, so to speak, to just make my business flourish? And that isn't necessarily, LinkedIn's not bad. Obviously, I use it all the time, but it feels like you've approached it from sort of the right perspective rather than trying to, it just sounds like it's not superficial for you. It sounds like you've really built some deep foundations to your network that have helped your business grow.
Yeah, I would say for me, I was in the game before the internet was a thing. So I think, we're in the age where there's more millionaires than ever before. And, your person next door your average person next door can be a millionaire and off of the internet or off of social media. And so I think what happens is that we see that, and we see that happening so much now, that people are worried more about the bottom line than they are about the quality that they're producing.
Right.
And I don't know how that'll fare in the long run, because this is very new, and a lot of the income streams that we're seeing now or that'll be here in 20 years haven't even, been created yet. But I think that, like I said, for me, when I was coming up in the entrepreneurship realm, I didn't know how to use media or internet or technology the way that a lot of people are able to use it now. So it was really, and I didn't anticipate this being my path. I just kind of fell into it and saw something that I liked and then followed it. But I do think it's essential in building your business to make sure that, like you said, you are building those relationships and you're maintaining those relationships. And I think I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, and is it the first 10 clients or 1,000 clients? Do you know what I'm referencing?
1,000 raving fans? Is that
yes.
referring to? Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's essential to focus on the quality that you're giving, right, so that you can, repeat that and have those repeat clients. So
exactly. Well, and you nailed it. I mean, and that's kind of the whole concept behind the 1,000 raving fans is, it's infinitely cheaper and faster to just do a great job with one customer than to, just try to get as many customers as possible.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about, because I'm listening to you, and I, especially being someone who's been an educator, I know your work's really important. Could you maybe, even for the listeners, give a bit more context to like what exactly are you building out? I mean, are these nonprofits? Are these small businesses that are looking to give back, so to speak, to a disadvantaged community? Is that directly the people that they serve, and then you kind of help them figure out how to do that? And what does it literally look like for the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So let's see, on a day-to-day, this is what this might look like. I might have a general conversation, and I might tell someone, oh yeah, I work with small businesses and nonprofits who want to get into enrichment programming. And this happens more than not. Someone will say, oh, well, I had an idea for creating a youth swimming program. I have no clue where to start, but this is something that I enjoy doing. And so I'll sit down with them and essentially consult them about how to create that program. What would that look like? And we will put together a program, we'll put together a curriculum. And as they're moving forward, I'll assist them in developing their programming, developing their curriculum, and then if they choose to go after grant money and additional funding, then I'll support them in those in that area as well. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh no, what were you gonna say?
Oh, see, this is the joy of just like a conference call. Is we don't see each other, so it's just like, oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna say. So I assume you're not like the expert in youth swimming. So is your work more around like, okay, here's how we're going to design it so it actually is impactful and it's sustainable? Because you mentioned like the funding piece of it. Because I guess, anyone can start something, but it sounds like you have a special sweet spot in, really maximizing those resources. And again, it being sustainable long term.
Absolutely. So yes, what I do is specifically, you're the expert, but I'm good at bringing that out of you.
Okay.
So I'm good at identifying objectives, creating what the day-to-day looks like, creating what your long-term vision for your program is, doing the research with you or for you, and combining collectively what that program looks like, and how do we market this program, how do we present this program in the most impactful way, and how do we get your program going and sustain your program? I hope that makes sense.
It does. And do you you've, like I said, you've been in business for almost a decade. Can you think of the most meaningful client you've had and what you did with them?
Let's see.
I know it's always like a bit challenging to choose because you're not picking favorites.
I hope they're not listening.
No, I just mean like one that was like maybe even just personally, maybe it was just personally just special for you. I mean, what's an example of one of those?
So one of my favorite organizations that I worked with was a sports and nutrition program. And the reason was because it was so their population was disadvantaged youth in Baltimore. And the work that they did was they created youth recreation sports activities, so intramural leagues for middle school and elementary school youth who didn't have those intramural sports leagues. The reason that was most impactful for me, like I'm not I don't have a sports background or anything. But the reason that was most impactful is just the work that we were able to do. And this company is extremely successful now. And they dominate intramural sports in the Baltimore area. But that was one of the programs that I was able to start with them at the ground level and to provide insight, to provide support, to help them get clients, to help them get grant funding, to help them brand, to help them, develop the infrastructure of their program, and then to be able to leave when my time was up, because I come in to help you create and then let you go and you flourish. But to be able to walk away from the end of our contract, and to see how far they've come, it's just been amazing. And one of the things that I've also enjoyed about that is sometimes I'll see some of their current employees, and they'll say, "Oh, you're the legend. You helped start the company." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't necessarily help start the company, but I was there at the ground level helping them build out, their infrastructure." So it's just been amazing to witness their growth and to witness, I feel like I want to say they started off in maybe 2 or 3 schools, and I think now they have 120 schools in Baltimore.
Wow.
But it's just been amazing. And we worked together about 5 years ago.
Wow.
So it's just beautiful, to see those programs flourish.
It's always, here's what I love about you is, it's so countercultural in the consulting world to know when it's time to move on. And I know, especially in the consulting, because I'm in the consulting world,
right?
I know I've been in a lot of conversations where the conversation is, okay, we've finished this work. Now, how do we get them to stay with us? What's the next thing?
Right.
And I think it shows a lot of selflessness and care for the customer, when instead it's, hey, yeah, I've done I've done my duty here. It's time to let them fly, right? And get out of the way. And I love that about you.
Thank you. I think that's imperative. To me, work is an extension of you, or in the most ideal sense, it's an extension of you. And in life, there are cycles. And, you're here for a cycle. You're here, to fulfill a mission. And then sometimes that mission is done and it's okay. And, I remember somebody told me his favorite quote was a quote from Batman. And it's like, either you, and I'm going to butcher this quote.
I know it, so I'll help you because I'm a Batman fan, and so I'll let you take a stab at it, and then I'll obnoxiously correct you after.
Okay. So either you retire a hero or live long enough to become a villain.
You nailed it. That's it. Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Good. But that's how I feel because, a lot of times, especially in consulting work, if you're, not that you're not dedicated to, the position, but if you came in to do something specific and if you do your work effectively, then you get your client to a point where they don't need you anymore. And that's like with any, like with teaching or with therapy or whatever. You hope that you get your client to a place where they are operating efficiently, and then that means that your work has been done successfully. And at that point, it's time to part ways and give them your blessing, and you get their blessing and you move on. And so, anything beyond that, to me, beyond when the work is done, I think sometimes you might just be, doing the rigmarole of, okay, I'm here, I'm supposed to be here, I show up every day, but my heart isn't in it. Right. So for me, it's really important to, stay in it while I'm in it, be happy, be passionate about it, and then move on before it just becomes a routine.
Right. And it makes me think of some work I've done in the past has been like for companies that need like leadership development, having me come in and kind of spearhead their leadership development. And I remember there was a sort of like a switch that flipped for me probably 4 or 5 years ago. Actually less than that, probably 2 or 3 years ago, where it was kind of like, I can keep doing this for you, but it would actually probably be a lot more meaningful if I just showed you guys how to do it. And then now, I mean, how much more meaningful is that when your own boss is like leading this leadership development initiative, as opposed to like the random guy who like doesn't even work here, coming in and trying to spearhead it. And so I think what you've said is a really great insight, and also just how amazing it must be for you. I don't know if you ever have a bad day, because it sounds like it wouldn't be hard for you to look out and see the results of your impact, right? I mean, talking about 120 schools, I mean, to be able to see, you didn't just impact that organization, but it's multiplicative, right? It's exponential because you get to see the people beyond that they are influencing.
Yeah. And I also think it's awesome that, you were able to help that organization and the organizations that you work with get to a place where they can implement your programming as well, or, your leadership style and coaching as well, which is, another form of like, of scaling, like being able to have your business model there without you necessarily being there. But as far as the bad days, sometimes I do, but, and I think, what's really important to me. So sometimes I do these posts, on Instagram and sometimes on LinkedIn just to help beginner entrepreneurs understand what the road ahead of them. What has been helpful for me and what I'm working on is understanding that there are waves. So you will have periods where you might have a bad day or a bad month, but it's okay. And so preparing for the storm and weathering the storm. And, in an ideal world, you will never have those lower moments. But then that means that you're not, maybe you're not trying hard enough or not trying anything new. So just, bracing for those moments when I'm going to try a new venture and it might fail, or it might not go as I intended for it to go, has been really helpful in dealing with the bad days.
Do you think it almost feels like, it feels like today it's harder than ever to really be an entrepreneur, not because even so much the journey, but because so many people on social media, they're not always talking about those hard days. In fact, what I typically see in the entrepreneurial world is a lot of people they're sharing a story that and it's definitely not the whole story, but it's something like, I was working a minimum wage job and now I'm a millionaire 6 months later, buy my course or
Right.
hire me and I'll show you how to do it. And I see those and I kind of cringe because I think, and not that there aren't hyper successful stories, not that there aren't, flashes in the pan, things like that. But what I do know is, you have someone like Steve Jobs, who was fired from his own company that he founded. And you have, people like Peter Drucker, who's like so well esteemed in the consulting world, who no one even read a book of his until he was 60. And so it just seems like, practically speaking, the journey is actually a lot longer and harder than we may think. But it feels like today there's so much noise saying otherwise that it's hard to really have the right perspective.
I totally agree. And I also feel this way, and this is a different subject, so I'll try to remember to circle back to this. But sometimes I feel that way with the positive thinking, like mantras and videos, because I'm a complete positive thinker, and that's what's gotten me this far. But sometimes with the entrepreneurial, like the advertisements and just being bombarded with these online courses and through technology about how you can be a millionaire, I don't know if you have ever likened it to like network marketing, where it's like, you can be a millionaire, just do this, 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 and this, and pay me X amount of dollars to show you how. And what they don't tell you is that nothing worth having comes easy. And I'll say I have had periods where things just they seemingly fall out of the sky, but it's probably because of, business relationships that I nurtured maybe a year before and forgotten about them. But I think with the technology and with the advertising of entrepreneurship being easy, yes, you can give me the formula. Yes, you can give me all of the tools. But if I don't have the work ethic, if I don't have the habits, if I don't have the ambition, the motivation, if I don't understand that, your habits will carry you when your passion falls by the wayside, I can give you $1,000 a month to show me how, but it's going to be wasted, if I'm not doing the work myself.
Right.
And I do think that that's, I guess, is somewhat of a toxic positivity overload. And, I just made that up, so I don't know if that's even a thing. But
I'm all about it. I'm with you. I'm like, yeah, you need to coin that for sure.
Thank you. But yeah, I think that with that, it just gives us really unrealistic perspective of what success looks like really on a day-to-day basis. And I think it can set you up for, like, on a deep level, depression, because you might equate your self-efficacy to, okay, well, you just told me that all I have to do is write this ad this way and spend X amount of dollars. I know I saw one where it's like, you spend $2 a day on Facebook advertising, I'll give you the script and you'll make $10,000 in the first week. And it's like, okay, that sounds great. But what if I do that and I don't get those clients in the first week? And now I don't have the habits and I haven't set, realistic expectations, because you as the coach have not told me that, well, maybe it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks or a month or, a couple months or, plan for 6 months of dedication before you even see your first client. Now I'm going to doubt whether or not this is my lane, and I might give up. And I think with this new age and technology, like in this generation, we just expect everything to happen overnight without understanding that there are skills that you have to build, there's habits that you have to form. And, you have to be committed and motivated in other ways, in order to be successful over the long term.
And man, there is so much to unpack from what you just said. I mean, everything you just said could be its own episode. First of all, you are so on point. There absolutely is a level of, and I think you nailed it, it's toxic positivity where it's like so many people are, and for the listeners, surround yourself with encouraging people. Absolutely. Positivity is great. But I saw Sharday, I saw this post the other day that was in the literally the first line was, with enough time, commitment, and passion, you can turn any hobby of yours into a 6-figure profitable business. And everybody was commenting and they were like, yes, wow, yeah. And maybe I'm just fussy. I don't know. But I thought, well, what if your hobby is underwater basket weaving? Or like,
Right.
what if your hobby is, and so that kind of statement is so exciting because you're like, yeah, but it's misleading because, people buying your stuff has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with what they actually want. And so if there aren't people who want to learn how to do underwater basket weaving, it doesn't really matter how good you are at it. It's never going to be a sustainable business. And I think the second thing I wanted to say was, to your point, it absolutely upsets the journey of the entrepreneur because you do get distracted by depression. You get distracted by, am I even doing this? Rather than understanding it's less about you and it's more about patience and time. And in fact, your story that you just said was literally me when I started my business, where I had this really great marketer who was working with me and ended up letting this guy go. But I just went, I remember thinking after the first week or two, like, where are my customers? Because he had told me, just do this and you're going to get, more customers than you can imagine. But I really did fall like into this deep, deep depression, like where my wife was really just trying to like pull me out of it. And so I think you've nailed it. I think you've nailed it. And I think that you're so right. If, falling into this trap of thinking will ultimately disrupt the journey you're on, which frankly is a journey of commitment and patience and, appetite to stick with it. And, it's just, it is a wild culture that we're living in right now.
It really is. And I think it's instrumental and imperative for people like you who have, you feature entrepreneurs and you create tools and resources so that people have a more realistic perspective of what that looks like, so that you can be prepared. And I think another part of this, toxic positivity or even toxic entrepreneurship or whatever, is the concept that, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought.
We've both done it now.
The concept that you can just, jump in and it'll be an easy thing. And I think if you have the tools and the resources, that's what I was going to say. The idea that entrepreneurship is for any and everybody. And it can be, and it's great. But I think what's equally important is to have a very real conversation with yourself about, if I'm not an entrepreneur, it does not say anything about me. It doesn't mean I'm any less of a person if I don't, use my passion in this underwater basket weaving and I don't go for it. It doesn't mean that, I'm not an innovator or a creative person or I can't be successful, in other ways. And I think it's really important that, people understand that. But the tools and all of these things, the training, the mental stamina, all of these things that you have to do and to prepare yourself to be an entrepreneur is not for the weak of heart. And I think about it like being an Olympian. So in 2019, my New Year resolution was to train my mind and to become mentally agile and flexible and adaptable, to deal with all of the things that you have to deal with when you're an entrepreneur, but just in life in general. I think that is so important to be able to weather the storms, be able to maneuver, and to be able to just stand firm even when it looks like the world around you is falling down. And I think that's what you have to acquire to be a successful entrepreneur.
And, it's interesting because I found that people don't even really know there's a lot of like sexiness around the term entrepreneurship, but not everyone really knows what they're getting involved in, when they dive into it.
Right.
And I think about a guy I was talking to, he was like, I so badly want to be an entrepreneur. And I said, well, what do you think that means? And he was like, I just envision being able to wake up whenever I want and not have anyone tell me what to do. And I said, okay, that's not entrepreneurship. That's called immaturity. And
Right.
but that's what his perception was, in today's culture of it's really snazzy, it's really flashy, that's what excited him. That's what he wanted. Right. And so he was kind of in for a rude awakening.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like that's cute, but that's not real.
Right.
Because you have to work even harder. You have to remember, you have to be your own boss. Just because you're not reporting to someone outside of yourself, you need to be reporting to yourself, and you need to, be able to give it that much more energy and attention and dedication. And you might have 15 or 17-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
And, you might not get a break for a while, but,
It's amazing how everyone wants to be an entrepreneur so they can not have to worry about work on the weekends. But I feel like I work more on the weekends now than I ever have before.
Yes, that is my thing. Like Sunday, I don't do anything. Like I don't do anything with anyone else because that's my work. That's my grind day. Like wake up at this time, do all the work, finish late. But yeah.
No, this has been really fun. What can listeners do right now to engage with you, to follow you, to stay connected with you? What's like the one thing they should do?
Sure. So I would love for listeners to check out my website. It's sjonesbooksandeducation.com. Or they can follow me on LinkedIn. It's Sharday, Sharday Jones. And those are the two avenues that they can use to reach me.
Great. So for the listeners, I'll put that in the episode description so that you have it. Sharday, it was so fun having you on today.
Yes, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you.
Great. And for the listeners, let me know what you think about the episode. You can shoot me an email, blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. Hey, if you're a first-time listener, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We're going to go ahead and keep bringing you amazing guests like Sharday onto the podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, think about leaving us a 5-star review. It keeps us top of mind for people so they keep getting great content from us. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later. See ya.